Chico and the Man will not be presented this evening, and the Rockford Files will be seen 1 hour later than normal, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Our report details how advertising through television transforms strangers to your product into acquaintances, and acquaintances into friends, and friends into customers. You could almost say, as a result, that television puts into every living room a selling machine.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's time again for Kinescope. I don't know if Gabe Hartman is going to adjust his set so that he comes in black and white, but and that's fine. We'll wait for that desaturation to happen. But good to see Jeff Parker here as well, and we're very excited about tonight's episode. It's a great courtroom drama.
This is a real pedigree to this one.
100%, man. No, this is tremendous. It's from 1957, and it was so special that it was maybe the first two-parter in television history, but Studio One's The Defender, and there you see the lineup right there. Ralph Bellamy at the left, William Shatner in the center, and a very young Steve McQueen, the defendant in the courtroom drama that had an all-star cast up and down, and I think really strong performances. I'm a big fan of this. I bought the DVD of this years ago.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's a really solid courtroom drama. I mean, I'm not a huge courtroom drama person. Like no. I just like a lot of things, I don't love, things that just feel like they have a set format that, that just has deviations that you go through. And, but it's a good story. It's a good character story. It's not just about, the plight of the defendant or whatever. It's everybody is dealt with as a character in it, which makes it worth it to me.
What do you think, Jeff?
It's interesting. I could the whole time, even though it's written by Reginald Rose and 12 Angry Men. But what I kept thinking of the entire time is how it predates Anatomy of a Murder. Jimmy Stewart, directed by Otto Preminger. Except, like McQueen's character as the defendant he's not Ben Gazzara. He's not like they're not going as far as to suggest that he's really guilty.
Yeah.
Even despite whatever Ralph Bellamy thinks, as the old bow tie wearing classic principled lawyer who made a case in the Scopes monkey trial and everything else You know, and it's all about law. But yeah, it's like I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that, you know, they're talking about the whole time William Shatner, his young son, who he's not getting on with, is trying to get him to do a stunt. And actually, they talk it up so much that I thought it was going to be much worse than what it was. You know, but that's me who's seen a zillion of these here in the future of 2021.
Yeah, but I mean, doesn't it, the fact that it's, I felt like the fact that it's not, it in a way doesn't feel like such an egregious stunt kind of plays more into, you know, into the Ralph Bellamy character, where he, you know, it's just about this little transgression that, you know, that would cause him that much, you know, like inner strife, you know, and, you know, and the, you know, like, I think that somehow supports his character more than if it were some really ridiculously flamboyant thing. I don't know. Right. That's how I felt about it.
You know what I like about Bellamy's character in this is he keeps the dour tone throughout, but at first he's almost saying nothing as Shatner's trying to get him to talk, and like, gee, Pop, how are we going to defend this guy, and everything. But he looks very resigned to losing and not doing anything. But then he clicks into like an animatronic that suddenly comes on when you trigger the laser beam. You know, he just comes to life and immediately starts in just like on a great defense with really nothing to work with.
Yeah,
you know, he's like, he knows how to work the room and everything. So that's kind of fun watching him suddenly spring to life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do really like that wind up at the beginning where he's not really saying anything. He's not even saying that he feels like, you know, Steve McQueen's character is guilty, or that he just dislikes him, you know, which is part of it. You know, he just doesn't like this guy.
Yeah, he just clearly doesn't like him.
Yeah, and he's like hanging back. He won't go, you know, go meet with him pre-trial. He won't, like, you know, engage with him at all. And I thought that was, you know, it's a nice wind up, very much like a play where we're not told everything up front, and, you know, and it's able to kind of seed stuff and let it play out, and you know, and that creates suspense, you know, instead of just telling us everything right off the bat.
Agreed. And it's interesting because, as we know, this became the basis for the subsequent television series a couple of years later, The Defenders, which starred E.G. Marshall and Robert Reed. And in that case, they really were much more of a team, and it's a much more gentler father and son relationship rather than this very contentious one between Bellamy and just out of law school Shatner, who see things very differently. And I kind of like that. I like that this is a lot more edgier. And by the way, you can see episodes of The Defenders on YouTube as well. The Defenders, for its time, was a very socially aware show and controversial, wasn't afraid to take on things in its own right. I just feel that this first one was a lot edgier and a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I don't know the TV show or the series particularly well. I watched one episode for this and one with William Shatner as a guest star. But it, you know, at least on that episode, it was more about it didn't focus so much on the dynamic between the two.
No, it's about the defendants. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's kind of what I don't love about a series thing like that, because it just, you know, feeling like you're playing out a formula and it's just deviations on the formula. And this is more like we're telling a story. We have a play. This is a very specific thing about these specific characters, you know. And I mean, it's still a courtroom thing, but you know, but at least that made it more interesting to me.
It's got our favorite thing. It's got a great bunch of mugs. I mean,
absolutely.
People were talking again on the internet this week, like joining the eternal conversation we always have about everybody's too pretty, and like, it's really annoying, and like, you know, and of course, I think the thing we were watching on YouTube to watch it makes a point of that it's got the late great Ed Asner in it, even though, as Gabe points out, he says nothing. He's just
there.
He's just there to be Joe Lunchpail and the jury.
Yeah, and I've seen descriptions for the show starring Ed Asner. It's like, yeah, not really.
no, I know
really.
that. Yeah, that was what one of the YouTube clips was. Starring Ed Asner. It certainly isn't. But it's my God, it does co-star Steve McQueen. I mean, and and which is, I mean, I'll
the year
say
before he's in The Blob.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. And I'll say that. I mean, I think that he goes, he can be slightly too much, slightly amateurish at points, but it's early in his career. It's early in Shatner's career to a degree too. I mean, the part of the interest of this stuff is seeing people in their kind of, formative thing, working it out, figuring out who they are. I mean, this Steve McQueen is so much more a, actor studio-ish methody guy who's who's screaming and gesticulating, and then at times taking it way too far by biting his fist. Like biting his fist at the table was like, dude, just calm down a little bit. It's a little too much. And then he did it twice in a row, and then I was like, all right, guy, come on. But it's live TV too.
He's gonna get the chair.
He's no one in the world has ever bitten their fist. No, a human being in real life has never ever bitten their fist.
There he is.
But he was good though. I mean, he did really hold the screen, and there was a sort of electricity, with him that makes it really clear why he, even though the persona, the kind of cool persona that he is known for in the movies is very different from what he's doing here.
100%.
But you can really see that spark in there too.
Just like our earlier episodes where we showed James Dean as a bookish lab assistant rather than another king of cool. So no, again, this is why one of the main reasons I think that we wanted to do this show is really show these actors at, if you put it in insect terms, the pupa stage, perhaps, before they're fully become butterflies and everything. So yeah, I'm sorry, Jeff. I
agree. McQueen's kind of, he's bringing that. This is that part of the 50s where people like him bring that kind of modern touch in that sort of feels really fresh, even if he ramps it up a bit too much in places. In that kind of way, say like probably Montgomery Clift must have seen, when he showed up.
Absolutely,
and you think like, what year is this guy from? Did he travel back in time?
Right. And it's a very different kind of performance than what Shatner is giving. Shatner is he's always pretty direct, right? I mean, everybody knows he goes big, but and he doesn't even go particularly big in this.
No, he doesn't.
He's very, kind of wound up in a lot of ways in this. But he and that's the role. And that's that's what he needs to be. But he also is somebody who it doesn't really feel like he's I don't know. It never feels like he's trying to play different things, or counterpoint the scene or do anything. He's always kind of directly, staring down the barrel of whatever particular emotion that he's doing. And, he's very much doing that in this. When he's sad, he's sad. When he's, frustrated, he's frustrated. But, but like he's not doing the, kind of method actor attempt at nuance. But like, I think that it's a really interesting and effective performance, but also really interesting to just see him right next to Steve McQueen, literally sitting next to each other, doing, early on in their careers, taking completely different trajectories.
100%. And also a bit of a precursor to his role in Judgment at Nuremberg, even though he's Spencer Tracy's, adjutant or whatever, however you would say it.
Adjutant. Yeah.
Thank you. And dialogue. Pronunciation, please. Thank you. But no, it's cool, and I like this stage of Shatner because he's not big yet, and so I think you see what I think all the casting people did see early on with Shatner, where it's like, hey, wait, this guy, let's give him more to do and everything.
Well, this is around the time that he also played Archie Goodwin in, not the editor, but the Nero Wolfe's assistant.
Right.
On that little trial that never went anywhere.
Right. Unsold Pilot. I forget who played. It was Kurt Kaz. I forget how you say his name, but the guy from Land of the Giants who had the Dr. Smith kind of role. Kurt Kazur or whatever it was, but great Broadway actor as well, was in the original Barefoot in the Park, playing the Charles Boyer role of the guy who lived in the attic and stuff, and is trying for well, in the movie it's Jane Fonda's mother, Mildred Natwick, but I think in the original play it was Elizabeth Ashley. But yeah, that's a cool, if you're a procedural, and especially if you're a Nero Wolfe fan, that Unsold Pilot is very cool to watch.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, I've watched it. It's fun. I don't remember the actor, but yeah, totally. It's funny that, so I'm going to be the one who brings up the Academy interviews before John does this time. But you know, but in Shatner's they ask him about working with Steve McQueen, and and he's like, he was a wild man, and like, he didn't go much more into it than that. But I get, he's a very powerful, but like I think that I think that probably just speaks to their very different ways of approaching, the material. Sure. And, but it's interesting, he didn't recollect a whole lot about, his early days. And one weird little thing in it was that the interviewer asked him about working with Alfred Hitchcock on a TV thing early on, which was it wasn't an Alfred Hitchcock Presents. It was, he was literally directed by Hitchcock in this weird little, like, it was a sort of public service dramatized thing for cancer awareness. And he and like they I mean, there's just a little clip of it on YouTube, but I've read so much about Hitchcock and not nothing about Shatner, and and I had never heard of this before, but it's like a little 12-minute thing where they are doing a sort of fake improv of like a doctor counseling a patient who's just gotten this diagnosis, and Hitchcock is walking in and directing them on set and stuff. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I just found it very, very odd and interesting, and it's something I've never heard about before. But Shatner didn't remember it. The guy brought it up, but he was, he seemed to have no memory. But
I also like how the Defender, not only it kind of forked into two different directions. The Reginald Rhodes Defenders television series. But as we know, because I think all three of us have watched a couple episodes of Shatner's mid-60s show that didn't make it. It was only on one season. It was called For the People, where he's a public defender. And in that same kind of conflicting role of a superior, it's not his father, but the great Howard Da Silva plays the lead public defender, and Shatner works in his office, and they kind of are at odds sometimes in various episodes. Also, a very young Jessica Walters, as his wife. Yeah, I think it's cool, and I really, that kind of, I think, is more the subsequent show that really does take a lot from the Defender. I don't know if that was by chance or whatever. I mean, it really was like 7 years after the Defender premiered in 1957. When they did that show. But
I gotta say, like, unlike a lot of these kind of procedural type things, I've only watched a couple episodes of that thing, but and I meant to get back to it, but there's something really interesting going on there. Very interesting the way they produced it. A lot of kind of handheld stuff on the street and a lot of energy to it. It seems to be a pretty interesting show. Somebody should do a podcast about it someday.
No, I agree. Ed asks, and really, I was kind of thinking this while watching the Defender for the subsequent time. But did my cousin Vinny take this and flip the scripts for laughs? There are definitely, I think, shades of this original story in My Cousin Vinny. I wonder if it is like 0 Hour was played for comic effect in Airplane. I don't know.
I did kind of. In my way of putting things together, where I'm used to, they're going to go ahead and solve the murder too, which they don't do. It's much more like, that's what makes me think more of Anatomy of a Murder. But I think that it's like, they're going to prove that it was the husband who did it.
Right.
He's the one who immediately punches Steve McQueen's lights out, like he probably did the maid.
Yep.
And I thought they were going to maybe point out, like, hey, look, notice how he's left-handed and he's right-handed, or something like that.
Sure.
No, that doesn't happen.
Right. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things about it, that it isn't about, solving this, because the trial is not about solving it. Right. It's about, is
clearing or not clearing Steve McQueen. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is there reasonable doubt? That's their job. And that's, and so, and that's the point of this story. That's where they're going the entire time. So, you know, it's good storytelling to do it that way. It's good storytelling to leave us without that answer.
It's got to be fun for Martin Balsam to essentially be in the switching sides from being in the jury of 12 Angry Men,
right,
to being the whip smart prosecutor who's just burning everybody's ass.
And look, I mean, it's actually kind of a more like, you know, kind of jerky, intense role than he does a lot of times. But like, I think, I mean, I've said it before, but I think Martin Balsam's like one of the great actors of his generation. Like he has this, like, he brings shit to things that, you know, at every turn that like surprise me. He approaches the simplest material in ways that are, you know, just exciting and interesting. Him in Psycho, you know, in Psycho, it's a nothing role on the page, and he makes it, you know, and Hitchcock, but he makes it something incredible, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm a massive Balsam fan. I mean, even in the mid 80s, he did that second generation Twilight Zone show. And it was a goofy episode, but man, you can't help but the man just brings integrity to everything he did. He's in the original pilot of $6 Million Man and plays Rudy Wells, the doctor that put Steve back together again originally. And then also, I mean, you know, Taken of Pelham 1, 2, 3. I mean, so many great movies, so many great television guest star roles or whatever. I'm a massive fan. And no, I think he's great. And I love his backstory that they even throw in there as well in this thing, that he's got political ambitions. He might be running for, I believe, governor, right? Or
yeah. Well, I mean, they actually, because that it's kind of like something that's suggested by somebody on the jury. I don't know. Yeah. Well, yes,
I'm going to be voting against him.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, that's, which is something that the show does in an interesting way. It uses the, you know, the bailiff, the, you know, the people in the jury, people in the courtroom as a little bit of Greek chorus and a little bit of, you know, especially since this is a two-parter, they didn't have any expectation that everybody saw the first one. So they kind of have to act as exposition and catch you back up at the beginning of that second one. But they do it in a pretty good way. Like it doesn't feel painful.
Yeah, you get the guard who keeps eating McQueen's roast beef sandwich. You gonna eat that since he can't eat?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite extras is some guy after it's like after the prosecution's making their case, there's some big goon who says something like, "There he is, the dirty murderer. You can see it all over his face." When Steve McQueen's marched. So they're like, it's a foregone conclusion. And in fact, they hammer it so well that it's a foregone conclusion. At some point, I just gave up that he was going to win. And I was like, yeah, he's going down.
Right.
And let's not forget Ian Wolf.
Mr. Atos.
Yes, indeed.
Mr.
Atos from
Star Trek connection there.
Absolutely, man. And that's fantastic. So he and Shatner working together again, and him as the judge.
You gotta hope Shatner at least brought this up. Hey, do you remember me from the Defender we did? And
I think that he would be like, who, that day player? Oh no, I'm not talking to him. That's I believe that's how Shatner would deal with that situation. But,
maybe. Hey, he might be watching. I included him in the description. I definitely put his.
Well, I feel like this is I don't think I'm saying anything against the kind of way Mr. Shatner portrays stuff. I think, you know.
Well, welcome back from the edge of space, Mr. Shatner.
Indeed.
Hey, I'd like to take this moment to the audience. Live better electrically through Westinghouse product.
Thank you, Betty Furness.
Betty Furness. Yeah, the I don't know. I found these commercials more entertaining for some reason than in a lot of these Westinghouse commercials with Betty Furness.
What's her name? Furness.
Betty
Furness.
Betty Furness.
Yeah. I'm hoping that, and I don't think he did it during the live television era, but we haven't shown a General Electric theater where we can get Ronald Reagan doing the same kind of stuff that Betty Furness used to do.
Yeah.
Yes, this is an all-electric kitchen. And, well, all I can say is Mommy and I are making a hell of a meal for the kids right now.
Yeah.
So,
Was that Ronald Reagan?
That was my attempt at Ronald Reagan.
No, I'm joking. Yes.
Maybe not that
No,
good.
I don't know. But those weren't live, right? It was like and there
That's what I was gonna
like
say. I don't think it
GE
fits the bill.
Theater. I know there's there's something called GE True or something like that. I know there was it's also hosted by him. It may be the same show. It's just one of those things that in my obsession with Jack Webb, I know that Jack Webb directed a couple episodes of this, and I've never been able to track it down. I remember going to Museum of TV and Radio and stuff in the early 90s, trying to track it down. In my prime Jack Webb obsession years. So, but I mean, trust me, if there was a live Jack Webb thing that we could watch,
that'd be great. I know.
I'd be all over that.
Greg, one of our Twitter followers, asked earlier if we would consider doing George Clooney's live production from 2000 of Failsafe. And I don't know, Gabe. And again, forgive me for having the production meeting on the show, but that's interesting. It is an interesting production.
I mean, it could be interesting. It would be more interesting to me if we could contrast, if it wasn't based on a movie and we could contrast it with another live, adaptation, an earlier live adaptation of it.
But we have compared live TV to eventual movie adaptations.
Absolutely. And we could do it the other way around. Absolutely.
Well, and my only concern is I want everybody to be able to watch it for free. There are certain movies that are on YouTube with commercials, and I'm totally fine if there's a free way to watch it. I know that there's a DVD of it. That's my only caveat.
Yeah, if we could, it would just have to be something we look into and make sure that it's something that's accessible to people, because otherwise, it also probably isn't accessible to me then.
Unless you want to go out and buy it, and I don't want to force anyone to buy something to watch it and for us to discuss it.
But certainly that could be interesting. It could be interesting something down the line, just to especially after we've watched all these from the 50s and see how they would adapt to production wise to doing something live in the 90s, I guess, or 2000s.
It was 2000. It was in 2000. Right. Walter Cronkite was even on the show.
Nice.
Who's the actress who plays McQueen's mom? Because she's good.
I will look her up, but I've got her there in the background in that show.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Vivian Nathan is her name.
What else was she in?
Let's find out.
Have we seen her in anything else? Because I don't know.
One moment, and I'll be able to tell you. She was a founding member of the Actors Studio.
Oh,
in 1947.
Interesting.
She's in The Rose Tattoo. Excellent movie. She's in Camino Real. And she, pardon me. She's not in, she's in the Broadway production of Rose Tattoo and Camino Real. Films.
She gives that authentic vibe.
She really does. Yeah. And she doesn't actually come off as, like a slick trained actor either. She's methoding it up there.
Pretty cool film credits. She's in Teacher's Pet with Clark Gable in 1958. Wow. She's in The Young Savages.
Oh, okay.
She's in The Outsider, where she played Tony Curtis's mother. And then she is also, I did not recognize her at all. She's Jane Fonda's psychiatrist in Clute.
Oh, right. Yes. Right. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of the Clute is. It's shot by Gordon Willis, and and everything is like in very specifically framed shots, and like all those psychiatrist sequences are basically just over her shoulder, and then there's like a couple of reverse shots of her. So I just watched Clute again recently, but that totally makes sense. That's very interesting.
Yeah, very cool. No, that's awesome, man. That's the thing, man. Again, I mean, there's, like I said earlier, Frank Martha is one of the jurists. I don't have a photo of him, unfortunately. But he's that one of those stock actors. He's been on several of our other shows that we've looked at. But also what I know him best from is he's one of those character actors from The Honeymooners. As opposed to George Petrie, who was always the short guy and stuff. Frank's the big tall guy. In fact, that episode where Ralph has the counterfeit money and the two gangsters come to rough him up and everything, Frank Martha's the taller, strong man. And Frank Martha's another one of those great character actors that, much like George Petrie and everything, like worked into the 80s and even early 90s in TV. And it's just one of those guys that, oh yeah, there he is again. If once you figure out who he is. And he was that juror that mostly gave a lot of exposition about Martin Balsam and the others and stuff. So pretty cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, we haven't mentioned that Robert Mulligan directed this, I don't think. And he,
No.
he went on to, I mean, he's mainly known for directing, now I can't think of it. The thing with the scout and what the fuck?
Sure, the thing with the
This is happening. I can't believe this is happening to me.
Don't worry, buddy.
To kill a mockingbird. To kill a fucking mockingbird.
That scout. I was thinking like a baseball or an acting scout. No, I'm with you now. Sure.
Sorry, it was just too funny.
I loved all of it.
I mean, like that's the main thing he's done for. He did a couple. He did Fear Strikes Out, which is a baseball movie.
The Jimmy
with,
Pearsall story, absolutely.
Yeah, with Anthony Perkins. Don't love that movie.
He's the same time next year as well, in the 70s with Alan Alda and Ellen Burstyn.
Right,
and the original Summer of 42.
Summer of 42, right?
Jennifer O'Neill movie, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those directors that I don't really feel like he had, he didn't have a signature, but he also just didn't, he was just a little bit of a mid-tier, even though he had, clearly he made one classic movie that everybody loves and some others that are highly regarded. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's the curse of directors who stay out of the way of the story. Everybody thinks, wow.
He's absolutely. But I mean, he also made a lot of not so great movies. But he's, I don't know. I mean, I think it's, he's just one of the ones who's kind of an interesting director, interesting case of a director who came out of this stuff. I mean, in this particular episode, I think everything is incredibly effective. I mean,
couldn't agree more.
It's simple, but it's not, it's actually not very, there's a certain percentage of, live TV stuff where it feels like they just pointed the camera at it. Things happened in front of the camera. And this is in no way that. The camera is very effectively used throughout it. It's not super showy, but it's also it's not anonymous either.
And it's incredibly competent because we do get those kind of the actor's just a little bit off his mark, or the camera isn't quite ready with the shot. And it really almost made me doubt for a second that it was a live production, because there are times where they cut from the room where the lawyers are deliberating right to the courtroom, and it's like, wow, that looks like a film, cut.
I know,
more so than a live take.
Right, yeah. I was thinking this too. I mean, that there's just so much coverage in the courtroom as well. We're just cutting and cutting and cutting. I mean, I know I was tracking it at one point where it was like one camera was on the jury box, one camera was in the in the audience with them, and then one was on Martin Balsam, and it was a kind of low angle on Martin Balsam, and I thought, where's the what how do we get out of this, right? And but then the next shot is just pivoting around, like just panning over and doing a complimentary single up angle on Ralph Bellamy. So clearly those other cameras were moving during that speech to someplace else, and I don't know how the hell they got them all around that set. Mind you, look at this shot. What is weird about this shot? The ceiling. There's a ceiling on this set, which is also crazy, right? Like, I mean, that they, that they're limiting their ability to light the set on a live show when, they don't have to, right? I mean, they're making this choice. I'm a piece of human garbage because I did not write down the art director's name. But I did see a little interview with him on the Emmy site, on those retrospective interviews where he was talking about this, and talking about how proud they were that they were able to do a setup where you could hide the camera in such a way where you could do reverses. You could have one camera on the witness box or the judge or whatever, and one camera on the attorney, and not see the other camera. And which is always the problem with this stuff. Always the problem for working out how camera placements for this live TV stuff is that you're going one way or another, you're going to end up shooting one of the other cameras. And which is why in The Comedian they were just they were able to be so dynamic, because it didn't matter if you saw the other camera.
That's right,
because it was part of the set. But But I was really impressed by the fact that they were so ambitious with the art. I mean, it seems super simple, like, oh, great, they have a ceiling or whatever, or they can shoot 2 directions. But it just adds enormous level of complexity to it that they didn't have to do.
Yeah, I never thought about this. Maybe the first one I never thought about the fact that it was live.
Right,
That it's so
right,
slick. I saw one boom real fast, and that was it.
right. And it also we're getting later in it by 1957, right? I
Yeah,
mean, we're 7, 8, 9 years into doing this stuff, and so people are trying new things. They're innovating, and they're just more confident about it. I would imagine.
yeah. I like
Another
when they go to the stairway set, and that was probably very thought out the way they built that and bring it about. And that's when they go in there, and story wise, it's the only part where I kind of like say really to Ralph Bellamy's character, because he's stunned that Balsam is there to do anything to win.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't like the way you treated the doctor, and it's like,
Yeah,
so
right. No, that's true. But
and it's
I mean,
like, come on, like you're missing the whole point, like the whole legal system agreements that we've made is, one, you're not supposed to worry about whether your client's guilty or not,
yeah,
and and
it is.
and
Yeah,
like, yeah,
it's shoving
and
those words.
they're playing it like he's from some old era of nobility,
Yeah, right.
and this
Totally.
is the new law, and you got to do it Shatner's way.
Right. It does that scene in the stairwell. I totally agree that it does feel like they're kind of shoving that stuff into the characters' mouths because we need to hear it, but like as an audience. But it didn't bother me as much. I did feel like that I felt like kind of the point of it was that the fact that Martin Balsam was saying the stuff out loud was what was taking him aback so much, as opposed to
He's
just
like,
the
I can't believe you're
idea of
saying
it.
this.
Yeah, kind of just like that he's basically saying, yes, I'm this mercenary. Yes, this is what, exactly what I am, grow up, like instead of playing a little, that kind of game you play in work situations where,
Balsam's even the one who dragged Shatner out there. Come on, kid, you might learn something.
right.
He's like, hey, don't be like your old dad with his bow
Mhm.
tie. You're going to be like me.
Yeah.
And so that finally pushes Bellamy over the edge. And then the whole setup of him gaslighting the mom and getting the whole courtroom fired up so they can pull the switch is really well done.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is.
Another character actor that's in there, and I didn't recognize her, but looking at the IMDb page, I want to now try and find her, is Florence Stanley, who played on Barney Miller, Fish's wife, also on the subsequent Fish television series. And in the 90s, she was on My Two Dads with Paul Reiser and Greg Evigan. So yeah, another interesting character face that if you're a nerd like us watching reruns and stuff, you might recognize her in her older age. So now I really want to see if I can see what she looks like in 1957.
Totally. So one thing that I did not know about this until like an hour ago is that there was a sequel, a quasi sequel to this episode, and
really?
it was an episode of Boston Legal, right?
A show did they use footage
I've never fucking seen before tonight. But sorry, I'm saying fuck a lot this episode.
That's
so I
all right.
apologize.
Please.
At Westinghouse, we're sorry for Gabe.
Yeah, exactly. Betty Finesse is going to slap the shit out of you for doing it.
So I watched this episode, and it's from 2007. It was like some kind of torture just having to watch an episode of network television shot in 2007. It is a sort of quasi sequel where characters' names are similar. Obviously, Shatner is not playing, the same named character, but he is. But the setup is, Shatner is a, old guy lawyer at this firm who I guess is eccentric or something, and the rest of the world knows this better than I do.
Exactly. I was going to say he's only won a couple Emmys for it, but please,
yeah, sure, whatever. And so, but the point was that it features flashbacks to this,
That's great.
Like, and there's a horrendous thing where 2007 Shatner morphs into 1957 Shatner in the black and white footage, which
I
was
hope it's like the Snoop Dogg video morphing where they turn from dogs to people.
yeah, it was kind of like being punched in the guts watching that, but but not as bad as I mean, when I talk about how nicely directed and nicely made the original one was, the fact that they seem to have like 3 cameras shooting random things all the time, which they just cut to randomly at any given point in this episode, which is why I can't watch TV like that. But
I gotta find this episode. I totally want to watch it.
It's on Hulu if people want to watch it.
Fantastic.
And, but it's basically, it is the same setup. It's basically that the old man version of Steve McQueen's character is being held like hostage at gunpoint by the son of the murdered woman from this original trial. I mean, none of these things are exactly what they are in the original show.
I love when people do a callback that no one could possibly get.
Yeah, but it's all it's like they just weirdly, or like, oh well, that was a lawyer thing. Shatner's a lawyer in this. We can somehow tie this together and make it about his dad, and like the Denny Crane character's dad.
Do they show Bellamy?
As
his father?
They do.
Wow.
There are like 3 or 4 different instances of like cutting back to clips of
fantastic.
This show, and I mean the drama of that Boston Legal episode is absurd and pathetic compared to the actual show. But it's I mean, like, I'm saying in and of itself, I'm sure that's the tone of the show. It just comparing them doesn't come off that well.
No, but go ahead. Finish.
I'm just saying. Well, no, it's about the guy who's supposed to be the son of the woman who's killed. It ruined their life. The blah 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 because the Shatner character got that character
off.
Yeah. But he comes in and he's like wearing an explosive vest and he has his finger on a thing and it's like it's I'm sure everybody loved it, but I just thought that it was an interesting thing. I mean, it's like there's a genre of quasi sequels to stuff in network television, and this weirdly fell into that.
Well, 2 things. One, specifically to Boston Legal, that's great, and I hope watching it, that's terrific to see a young idealistic Denny Crane morphs into the whack job that he was in Boston Legal. I think that will be interesting to watch.
Yeah, they didn't play any of that. It was just...
All right, well, whatever. But also in that genre of weird connective television shows, I think I told you about this, Gabe, a week or so ago. There's a Dick Van Dyke Diagnosis Murder where Mike Connors plays Joe Mannix again.
Right.
And they took footage from a 70s Mannix and made it part of the story. And it was great because they even, beyond showing the flashback scenes, they had the surviving actors that were still alive in the 90s to replay their characters in the 90s. And it was that's Diagnosis Murder is obviously just one of those, here's another senior citizen cracking cases and stuff. But when I heard Dick Van Dyke describe it, he's like, I didn't really bring anything new to it. You could really almost call it what was Rob Petrie doing in his 60s? And I'm like, well, I really liked Rob Petrie from the Dick Van Dyke Show. I would love to see what he's doing in his 60s. So I watched a handful of these.
Holding murders? What?
Well, okay. Meanwhile, as a doctor in a hospital as well, he's got time for both. But I will say that especially as they moved on in the seasons, they got very inventive with their story ideas. And, of course, the great Jerry Conway, who we all know from comic book circles, was one of the writers on the show. And I keep meaning the next time I talk to Jerry to ask him more about that. But I think that's cool when there is that kind of meta connection.
It's a funny gag, and it's amusing, right? Like, I mean, it's certainly the impulse is amusing, even if the final product is a little less tough. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that, but original The Defender, pretty damn good. One other thing that Shatner was that in his interview he said that he claimed that when they were making the series, they offered him the part again,
Oh,
to
sure.
reprise his role in the series, and he turned it down because he felt like at the time he felt like, well, this was a little bit before like serious actors got into television and into episodic series television. And that wasn't something he saw himself doing. The fact that he's a guest star in season 1 maybe undermines that a little bit, but whatever. But maybe there was enough time between when he was offered and the realities of needing a job that things just changed between.
Sure. And also even more so in a couple years later when he's doing the For the People TV series as well.
Yeah, but like I mean, clearly I can't remember if that was his first lead in a series or not, but the For the People show, but but like, yeah, I mean, because that's a few years later, right? Or actually, when is the Defender show? 61 started, I think.
Stand by. I'll let you know.
And so that's 4 years after
61. That is correct.
Yeah, right.
And also, again, in the 90s, Showtime had a sequel, well, a reboot of the show in the late 90s as well for the Defenders. So again, no, strong concept. The great Reginald Rose, I mean, certainly with 12 Angry Men had already, kind of put a stamp on live television.
And on legal drama, right? Like he kind of became known for this to some extent.
Absolutely. No, and again, a fantastic teleplay writer, I think. I mean, one of the greats.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, and I truly
fill in people who didn't see it. Steve McQueen gets off. They acquit him.
Yeah,
because they bring in a college kid, and everybody just keeps pointing. Yeah, that guy did it.
Yeah, they kind of fake out the witnesses by bringing in a reasonable doppelganger that they all point out and say, yes, I definitely saw that guy there, which undermines their testimony. And then
exactly, my client was busy making the block. He couldn't have committed the murder.
But you're expecting them to say things like reasonable doubt, and they never do. This is stuff that we've grown to expect.
Yeah, and also I thought it was very effective to just linger on the husband at the end there, who just is kind of like somebody like he got hit by a truck and he doesn't know how to respond, and he doesn't have any lines. He doesn't approach anybody. There's not a melodramatic scene. The melodramatic scene is him attacking him earlier. And I felt like that. There's a very sort of modern. It was a modern way to end the thing. To not be not have put some big melodramatic pin in it.
And also the ambiguity of well, all right, fine. Again, Bellamy kind of, did I do the right thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
Mortimer.
It's 50s existentialism. Like it's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to test my Ralph Bellamy for a second.
Okay, now do Dr. Saperstein.
Did he kind of look like an older Brando?
Did he? I don't know. I mean,
I'm because I didn't remember the doctor's name, but when he was on the stand, to me, at certain angles, he kind of looked.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No. I mean, he's Ralph Bellamy is Dr. Saperstein in Rosemary's Baby. Sorry.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
No, I see. My mind will go to the almost teleplay Missiles of October when Ralph Bellamy played Adlai Stevenson. I say we go through with the negotiation before we get to the attack, Mr. President. Right. I don't know, Adlai. I think you're wrong on this.
Your mind went to Don Amici. I know where it went.
Well, that's right. When I said Mortimer, absolutely.
But Ralph Bellamy also from His Girl Friday.
Yes.
His little bits in His Girl Friday are so funny.
Thank God, man. There's a great actor who went from being pretty boy back in the day to tremendous character actor as he got older.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad that Hollywood still found, like that he was able to get these roles. No, I'm a massive Ralph Bellamy fan.
And His Girl Friday is the one where like somebody comes up and says, "Yeah, this guy down there looks like Ralph Bellamy," right? Like where they say his name in the movie, even though he's playing the character. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Also, is it in? It's not His Girl Friday. There's another movie where he kind of plays kind of a Texas like oil man or whatever, and he's got his cronies and whoever. Oh, it's Edward G. Robinson's brother Orchid.
Okay.
He plays this like guy that's gonna marry Edward G's like old gun moll and give her a really nice life, and all of a sudden, this guy is so virtuous. Like, not only is he willing to give up his woman to Edward G, but also when Bogart's gang comes to beat up Edward G, he and his cronies go and beat the hell out of them, which is fantastic. And also, Edward G is like, nah, this guy's a lot better. He's going to give you a life a lot better than mine. Go with him. I'm going to go back to the convent and make wine with the brothers. And sell flowers. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I think we did this, right? Like,
I think we're. Yes, we can be done. It's all good. We can wrap it up. We will tell people about next week, and we already had the production meeting, so we don't have to do it for the moment. I hope this interests you, Jeff. We're going to look at Studs Place from the early 1950s, the great Studs Terkel.
Always, I love Studs Terkel.
Well, and this is a really cool experimental show because, and I as I texted Gabe this evening, you could almost call this the father of Curb Your Enthusiasm. It was very much a slice of life, sometimes funny moments, sometimes dramatic moments, sometimes overly sentimental, but it was all improvised. It was live television that was, they had the framework of the plot, but they allowed the actors to come up with their own dialogue. And I thought that was pretty amazing. There's a couple episodes that are on YouTube, and I had the pleasure of getting to meet and hang out a couple times with Studs before he passed away. The guy was a genius, and it was so fun to talk to him about this production. So I even have a little personal insight from my conversations with Studs.
That's awesome, because I've never seen any of these. I don't know anything about it. It's going to be really interesting researching this and taking a look at these for next week.
They're pretty cool. So I hope everybody will join us next week as we delve back in the world of live television for another episode of Kinescope. Great conversation, gentlemen. I thank you as always. And until next time, take it easy. Everybody take care. We'll talk to you next week.
Our report details how advertising through television transforms strangers to your product into acquaintances, and acquaintances into friends, and friends into customers. You could almost say, as a result, that television puts into every living room a selling machine.